What do you mean? That's not possible. The heart monitor screamed into a flat, merciless line as doctors rushed around her bed. We're losing her. Someone shouted over the chaos. Yet miles away, as the first pale light of dawn slipped through his bedroom window, David Matthews lay staring at the ceiling, completely unaware that the woman he once loved, the mother of his child, was fighting for her life. He didn't know that everything he believed was settled, finished, and buried was about to be torn open by a single phone call. If this story reaches you, consider staying with it. Some moments have a way of changing how we understand love, loss, and second chances. David Matthews jolted awake to the violent buzz of his phone rattling against the nightstand. The digital clock glowed 3:17 a.m. His chest tightened instantly. Nothing good ever came from calls at that hour. Hello. His voice was rough with sleep, but his pulse was already racing. Is this David Matthews? The woman on the other end sounded composed, professional, clinical. Yes, he answered. Sitting up and flicking on the bedside lamp, the dim yellow light revealed the familiar simplicity of his two-bedroom apartment. On the dresser, framed photos of his daughter Lily smiled back at him, her crooked grin, her missing front tooth, her joy. The only decorations he'd cared to keep since the divorce. This is Dr. Patel from Mercy General Hospital. I'm calling about Rebecca Matthews. His throat tightened instantly. Rebecca, his ex-wife, 3 years had passed since the divorce. Yet her name still pressed on something tender inside him. Like touching a bruise you pretend has healed. She's been in a serious accident, the doctor continued. She's in surgery right now. It's critical. She's lost a significant amount of blood, and she has a rare blood type. Our supply is limited, and you're listed as her emergency contact. Emergency contact. They hadn't spoken properly in over a year. Not since Lily's 7th birthday party, where they'd exchanged stiff politeness for their daughter's sake. You're her best match, Dr. Patel said gently. You share her blood type. We need you here as soon as possible. The words echoed in his head. You're her last hope. David's gaze drifted to the closed bedroom door down the hall. Lily slept peacefully on the other side, unaware that her mother's life was hanging by a thread. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Kay said, already pulling on his jeans. The hospital corridors were unnervingly quiet, the kind of quiet that magnified every sound, the squeak of nurses' shoes, the hum of fluorescent lights. David had called his neighbor, Mrs. Hernandez, who agreed without hesitation to stay with Lily until morning. He'd left a hurried note on the kitchen counter, promising to explain everything later. At the nurse's station, he was directed to the surgical floor. His footsteps echoed as his thoughts spiraled. Rebecca had been the one to leave. She'd said she needed space, needed to find herself. Over time, hurt had hardened into something close to resentment. For 3 years, David had done everything alone, learning hairstyles, baking birthday cakes, sitting through school recitals with an empty seat beside him, answering Lily's quiet questions about why Mommy didn't live with them anymore. And now Rebecca needed him. The irony stung. Dr. Patel met him near the elevator. She was smaller than he expected, her tired eyes kind behind her glasses. Thank you for coming so quickly, Mr. Matthews. We need to prep you for the donation immediately. What happened? David asked, keeping pace with her. Single vehicle accident. She hit a tree on Riverside Drive. Internal bleeding. We're repairing a liver laceration, but the blood loss was severe. Riverside Drive, near their old house. The one they'd bought when Lily was a baby. Is she going to make it? The question slipped out before he could stop it. Dr. Patel slowed. The next few hours are critical. We're doing everything possible. In a small, sterile room, a nurse prepared the equipment. David rolled up his sleeve without thinking. You said I'm still her emergency contact, he said quietly. Didn't she change it? That's something only she can answer, Dr. Patel replied. Right now, what matters is this. The needle pierced his skin. David watched as his blood filled the bag, his blood flowing toward the woman who had once been his entire world. The intimacy of it unsettled him. Memories surfaced uninvited. Their wedding. Rebecca's laughter when she told him she was pregnant, bringing Lily home from the hospital. Then the fights, the silences, the night she packed her bags. All done, the nurse said softly, pressing cotton to his arm. You should rest. But David stayed. He sat in the waiting room until dawn crept through the windows, untouched coffee growing cold beside him. When Dr. Patel finally approached, he rose instantly. She made it through surgery, she said. Relief hit him so hard. His knees weakened, she's stable, but unconscious. The next 24 hours are important. Can I see her? The question surprised even him. Dr. Patel nodded. Room 412. Rebecca lay motionless amid the quiet beeping of machines. Her face was pale, bruised, vulnerable. For a moment, she looked so much like Lily that his chest ached. David stood at her bedside, unsure what he felt. Anger had carried him for years, but it wasn't there now. Only something heavy and unresolved. Your blood saved her, a nurse. Whispered, he nodded, swallowing hard. He touched Rebecca's hand gently. I should go, he said. My daughter will be waking up. On the table beside the bed, he noticed a photo inside a clear plastic bag. Him. Rebecca Lily, smiling at the beach. Why would she still carry this? Explaining his absence to Lily was easier than expected. At 8, she accepted his explanation. With surprising calm, more interested in whether they could still go to the park at the playground. Her laughter rang through the air as David's phone buzzed again. Mr. Matthews, Dr. Patel said, Rebecca is awake. She's asking for you? His grip tightened. Did you tell her I donated blood? Yes, she was very emotional. I have my daughter with me. There was a pause. She's asking for Lily too. David's chest tightened. Rebecca had missed visit after visit. Each cancellation had chipped away at Lily's hope. I don't know if that's a good idea, he said quietly. I understand, Dr. Patel replied, but she says she has something important to tell you both. David ended the call and sat heavily on the bench. Daddy, watch me, Lily called, hanging upside down from the monkey bars, her hair falling just like her mother's. I see you, sweetheart, he replied, forcing a smile as he watched his daughter play. Carefree and resilient despite the fractures in her young life, David made his decision. He would take Lily to Sir Rebecca, but he would prepare her first. Make sure she understood that her mother was hurt and in the hospital. And he will be right there beside her, ready to protect her if needed. He just hoped he wasn't making a terrible mistake. The hospital room was brighter now, the morning sun streaming through the partially opened blinds. Rebecca looked marginally better than she had in the early hours. Some color had returned to her cheeks, though the bruise had darkened to a deep purple. She turned her head as they entered, and David felt Lily's small hand tighten in his. He prepared her as best he could on the drive over, explaining that Mommy had been in an accident and was hurt, but getting better. Lily had been quiet, absorbing the information with a solemn thoughtfulness that sometimes made her seem older than her years. Lily, Rebecca whispered, her voice. Her eyes filled with tears as she extended her hand toward her daughter. Lily hesitated, pressing against David's side. He gave her shoulder a reassuring squeeze. It's okay, sweetheart. You can go say hi to Mom. Lily approached the bed cautiously, her eyes wide as she took in the machines and tubes. Does it hurt? She asked softly. Rebecca smiled through her tears. Not too much. The doctors gave medicine. She patted the edge of the bed. Will you sit with me for a minute? Lily glanced back at David, who nodded encouragingly. She climbed carefully onto the edge, off the bed, mindful of the foreline. "You've gotten so tall," Rebecca said, reaching out to touch Lily's hair. "And your hair is so long now." "Daddy learned how to braid it," Lily said, a hint of pride in her voice. Rebecca's eyes met David's over their daughter's head. "Your daddy is very good at taking care of you." David shifted uncomfortably into her gaze. "Dr. Patel said you wanted to talk to us," he said, steering the conversation away from himself. Rebecca nodded, wincing slightly at the movement. "Yes," she took a deep breath, then looked at Lily. "Sweetheart, would you mind if I talk to your daddy alone for just a minute? There's a really nice nurse at the desk who has some coloring books." Lily looked uncertain, but David nodded. "It's okay, Lil. I'll be right here." A nurse appeared at the door as if on cue, smiling warmly at Lily. "I hear you like to color. Want to come see what we have?" Once Lily had left with Thenners, Rebecca turned her full attention to David. The monitors beeped steadily in the background, marking the seconds of awkward silence between them. "Thank you," she said, finally. "Dr. Patel told him what you did. You came in the middle of the night to donate blood." David shrugged, uncomfortable with her gratitude. "Anyone would have done the same." "No, they wouldn't." Rebecca's voice was stronger now, insistent. "Not after what I did to you. To us." David looked away, focusing on the window, the slice of blue sky visible through the blinds. "Why am I still your emergency contact, Rebecca? It's been 3 years." She was quiet for so long that he thought she might not answer. When he finally looked back at her, she was staring at her hands twisted in the thin hospital blanket. "Because you're the only person I trust," she said softly, "even after everything." The admission hung in the air between them, unexpected and disarming. David didn't know what to say, how to process this information that didn't fit with the narrative he'd construct about their failed marriage. "I was coming to see you last night," Rebecca continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's why I was on Riverside Drive. I was coming to your apartment." David stared at her, confusion washing over him at 3 o'clock in the morning. "Why?" Rebecca's eyes welled with fresh tears. "'Cause I finally got the courage. I've been trying for months to work up the nerve." She took a shaky breath. "I made a terrible mistake, David. Leaving you. Leaving Lily. It's taken me 3 years to admit it, even to myself." David felt as if the floor beneath him had shifted. For 3 years, he'd lived with the certainty that Rebecca had never looked back. That she'd chosen her freedom over their family without regret. "You left us," he said, his voice tight with the pain he'd carried for so long. "You missed birthdays, school events. Do you know how many times Lily has cried herself to sleep after you canceled plans with her?" Rebecca closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. I know, and I hate myself for it." "I was solaced, David. After Lily was born, I felt like I disappeared, like I wasn't a person anymore. Just a wife, just a mother. I thought if he'll lift, I'd find myself again." She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze directly. "Pudel. I found was emptiness, and the longer I stayed away, the harder it was to come back. The shame, it was paralyzing." David ran a hand through his hair, struggling to reconcile this vulnerable confession with the woman who had walked out on them. "So what changed? Why were you coming to see us last night?" Rebecca reached for the plastic bag on her bedside table. Wincing with the effort, David stepped forward automatically to help her, their fingers brushing as he handed her the bag. She withdrew the photograph he'd noticed earlier, the beach day. The 3 of them smiling in the sunshine. "I look at this every day," she said, her thumb tracing the edge of the photo, "every single day for 3 years. And yesterday," she paused, seeming to gather her strength. "Yesterday, I got some news that made me realize I couldn't waste any more time." A cold dread settled in David's stomach. "What news?" Rebecca met his eyes steadily. "I have cancer, David. Breast cancer. Stage 3. The words hit him like a physical blow. Cancer. Despite everything, despite the pain and anger of the past 3 years, he had never wished her harm. "The doctors found it 2 weeks ago," she continued. "I start chemotherapy next week. And all I could think was that I might die without ever making things right. Without telling Lily how much I love her, how sorry I am. Without telling you the truth." David sank into the chair beside her bed, trying to process this new reality. "What truth?" "That leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. That Eve regretted it every day. That she stopped swallowing hard. That I never stopped loving you, either of you." The confession hung in the air between them, impossible to ignore. Impossible to simply accept. 3 years of pain and absence couldn't be erased with a few words, no matter how sincere. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Rebecca said, her voice steadier now. "I don't even expect you to believe me. But facing my mortality, it's clarified things. And I needed you both to know the truth before I start this fight." David sat in silence, his emotions a tangled mess. Anger at the years of abandonment, sympathy for her diagnosis, confusion about his own feelings, and beneath it all, a stubborn ember of the love they'd once shared, a love he'd tried so hard to extinguish. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. Finally, Rebecca nodded, understanding in her eyes. "You don't have to say anything. I just needed to tell you." She hesitated, then added, "There's one more thing. I want to see Lily more. Before the chemo starts, and even during, as much as I'm able. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway." Before David could respond, there was a soft knock at the door. Lily stood there, a colorful drawing in her hand, the nurse hovering bend. "I made this for you, Mom," she said, approaching the bed with more confidence than before. She held out the drawing, a bright yellow sun sheening over 3 stick figures holding hands. Rebecca took the drawing with trembling hands. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." "Is this us?" Lily nodded, pointing to each figure. "That's Daddy, that's me, and that's you. We're at the beach looking the picture you have." Rebecca's eyes met David's. Over their daughter's head, a silent plea in them. David felt the weight of the moment, the crossroads they stood at. Whatever he decided now would shape all their futures, his Lily's and Rebecca's. "Lily," he said gently, "Mom has some in Jimport to tell you." The weeks that followed were a blur of hospital visits, doctor appointments, and difficult conversions. David had agreed to let Rebecca see Lily more frequently, but on his terms, supervised visits, no promises to Lily that couldn't be kept, and absolute honesty about Rebecca's illness in age-appropriate terms. Lily had taken the news of her mother's cancer with the resilience children often show in phases of adult crisis. She'd asked practical questions. "Will your hair fall out? Does it hurt?" And Dad appointed herself Rebecca's special helper, bringing small gifts and drawings to each visit. David watched it, the reconnection with cautious optimism. He saw the genuine love in Rebecca's eyes when she looked at their daughter, the effort she made to be present even on days when the pain and fatigue were evident on her face. It was the mother Lily had needed all along, the mother Rebecca might have been if she hadn't been lost in her own struggles. As for his own feelings toward Rebecca, thoughts remained complicated. The anger hadn't disappeared, but it had softened, making room for other emotions. Compassion, concern, and something else he wasn't ready to name. On the day of Rebecca's first chemotherapy session, David surprised himself by offering to drive her to the hospital. Mrs. Hernandez was watching Lily, who had schooled that day. "You don't have to do this," Rebecca said, as they sat in the oncology department waiting room. She looked small in the oversized sweater she wore, her hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. "Ich know," David replied simply. When they called her name, Rebecca stood, then hesitated. Would you come in with me? Just for today, David nodded, following her into the treatment room. As the nurses prepared the floor and explained the procedure, he noticed Rebecca's hand gripping the armrest of the recliner, her knuckles white with tension. Without thinking, he reached out and covered her hand with his. She looked up at him, surprise and gratitude in her eyes. I'm scared, she whispered, the admission clearly costing her. I know, he said again, but you're not alone. And in that moment, as the first drops of chemotherapy medication entered her veins, David realized it was true. Despite everything, despite the pain and the years of separation, they were connected by Lily, by history, by the blood he'd given that had saved her life. He didn't know what the future held. He didn't know if Rebecca would beat the cancer or if they could ever rebuild the trust that had been broken. But he knew that something had shifted that night. When his phone rang at 3 a.m., something that couldn't be undone 6 months later. David stood in the doorway of Lily's bedroom, watching as Rebecca read their daughter a bedtime story. Rebecca's hair was growing back in soft, dark wisps after the final round of chemotherapy. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. The tumors had responded well to treatment, and her latest scans showed no evidence of disease. The past month had been a journey of small steps. Rebecca had moved into a small apartment just 10 minutes from David's place, allowing for easier visits with Lily. They had established a new routine, family dinners twice a week, weekend outings. When Rebecca felt strong enough, and honest conversations about the past and the future. Forgiveness had come slowly in quiet moments rather than grand declarations. It came in the way David found himself looking forward to their family dinners. It came in the way Rebecca supported Lily's relationship with him, never competing for their daughter's affection, but instead reinforcing what a wonderful father he was. It came in gradual rebuilding of trust, one day at a time. And they all lived happily ever after, Rebecca concluded, closing the book. She kissed Lily's forehead. Sweet dreams, my love. Night, Mom. Night, Dad, Lily murmured, already drifting toward sleep. Rebecca rose carefully from the bed and joined David in the hallway, pulling Lily's door partially closed behind her. She was exhausted, she said with a soft smile. The zoo really wore her out. David nodded, leading the way to the living room. Do you want some tea before you go? It had become their ritual, these quiet moments after Lily was asleep, just the two of them talking over cups of tea. Sometimes they discussed Lily, sometimes Rebecca's treatment, sometimes nothing important at all. But increasingly, they found themselves reminiscent about the good times they'd shared, rediscovering the friendship that had been the foundation of their relationship before everything fell apart. As David prepared the tea in the kitchen, Rebecca wandered to the bookshelf where a new photograph had recently appeared alongside the others. The three of them at Lily's school playlist month, all smiles despite Rebecca's headscarf and thin frame. I never thought we'd have new family photos, she said when David joined her, handing her a steaming mug. I never thought a lot of things. He admitted, life has a way of surprising you. They settled on the couch, a comfortable distance between them. Rebecca wrapped her hands around the warm mug, seeming to gather her courage for something. David, she began hesitantly, I've been thinking a lot about what happens next, now that the treatment is over. He waited, giving her space to continue. I know we can never go back to what we were, she said carefully. Too much has happened. But these past months, being close to you and Lily again, it's made him realize what really matters. She met his eyes directly. I don't want to lose this, whatever this is becoming. David considered her words, the journey they'd been on. 6 months ago, he couldn't have imagined sitting here with her, feeling the quiet contentment that now filled him. The anger that had once defined his feelings toward her had transformed into something else. Not the passionate love of their early years, but something deeper, tempered by pain and forgiveness. "I don't want to lose it either," he said finally. "But I'm still afraid, Rebecca. Afraid of being hurt again. Afraid of Lily being hurt." Rebecca nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I know. And I can't promise that he'll never struggle again, or that I'll be perfect. But I can promise that I'll never walk away again, that I'll fight for us, for our family, whatever form it takes, every single day." David reassured across the space between them and took her hand. It was thin from the months of treatment, but warm and alive. "Then Wedeke it one day at a time. No pressure, no expectations, just us finding our way forward together." Rebecca's smile was like the sunrise, tentative at first, then brightening. "I'd like that." As they sat there, hands linked, David thought of that phone call in the darkness. 6 months ago, "She's in surgery. You're her last hope." The words had changed everything, setting them on this unexpected path of reconciliation and healing. Sometimes he realized hope was all you needed to begin again. 3 years later, David's phone rang again in the middle of the night. But this time, when he reached for it, his hand brushed against Rebecca's shoulder as she stirred beside him. "Who is it?" she murmured sleepily. David squinted at the screen. "It's the hospital." His heart raced with sudden fear. Had the cancer returned? But when he answered, the voice on the other end was joyful. "Mr. Matthews, it's Dr. Patel. I just wanted to let you know your sister's baby has arrived." A healthy boy, 7 pounds even. Relief and joy washed over him. His sister had gone into labor 3 weeks early, and they'd been worried about complications. "That's wonderful news. We'll be there first thing in the morning. Thank you for calling." As he said the phone down, Rebecca propped herself up on one elbow. "Fully awake now. The baby?" David nodded, smiling in the darkness. "A boy. Everyone's doing well." Rebecca laid her head on his chest, her hair now grown back in soft waves, tickling his chin. "Another middle-of-the-night call that changes everything," she mused. David wrapped his arm around her, marveling at the journey that had brought them here to this second chance, this rebuilt life. They'd remarried just 6 months ago, a small ceremony with Lily as their flower girl and ring-bearer combined. Rebecca had remained cancer-free, though they both held their breath a little at each follow-up scan. They'd learned to take nothing for granted, to cherish each ordinary day as the gift it was. "Should we wake Lily and tell her she has a new cousin?" Rebecca asked. David chuckled softly. "Let's let her sleep. We can surprise her in the morning." As they lay there in the peaceful darkness, David reflected on how a single phone call had altered the course of their lives. How the words, "You're her last hope," had led to healing not just Rebecca's body, but their broken family. How sometimes the darkest moments could lead to the brightest beginnings. Outside their window, the stars shone steadily in the night sky, witnesses to the resilience of the human heart and its capacity for forgiveness, growth, and love. In the room down the hall, Lily slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that her family, once fractured, now whole, would be there when she woke. And in that moment, David knew with absolute certainty that some calls were worth answering no matter the hour. Some chances were worth taking. Some hopes were worth holding on to, even when all seemed lost. Because of Samedi's in the middle of the night, life offered its most precious gift, the opportunity to begin again.